By popular vote, it's Shrek 2. I almost get the feeling I'm gonna keep doing Shrek reviews during these voting months, and I don't know how I'm gonna handle that. Anyway, I liked the first Shrek quite a bit. It had its problems, like the cliched misunderstanding plotline, but was ultimately a pretty enjoyable satire on the Disney formula, and delivered it in a way that still made it a respectable and entertaining experience. Shrek 2, on the other hand, is probably one of the best animated sequels I've ever seen. I'm not gonna hide that opinion from the start. I genuinely love this movie, even more than the first one. Everything the first movie did, I think this one does even better, while also introducing new things to make it stand out. Shortly after the events of the first movie, Shrek and Fiona have gotten married and living peacefully during their honeymoon, but their return home is cut short when it turns out they have to visit Fiona's parents in order to get their blessing. Naturally, both of them are stunned to learn that Fiona not only stayed as an ogre, but married an ogre. The father, Harold, voiced by John Cleese, is particularly frustrated with this revelation and hires an assassin to kill Shrek. The assassin, who turns out to be Puss in Boots, voiced by Antonio Banderas, eventually joins forces with Shrek to make up for his attempted assassination. It turns out that the fairy Godmother and her son Prince Charming actually want to seize the throne and have Charming marry Fiona instead of Shrek. So Shrek not only has to find a way to earn the parents' blessing, but also make sure that he and Fiona are meant to be. Okay, so what is it about this movie that makes it, in my opinion, better than the first one? Well, for starters, I love how it's a story that actually continues from the first film, and it continues with Shrek's whole identity crisis. I remember how in the first movie he said that nobody can really trust him and he doesn't see himself as worthwhile, and while he's earned both a friend and love interest in the process, he's still got an entire kingdom left to accept him. He questions if he himself is even good enough to be Fiona's husband. What will the world think of him married to a princess? The fact that he even goes out of his way to try and look like a human and risk everything he loved doing in the swamp because he thinks it'll benefit everyone is a really noble move on Shrek's part. I also love how this movie expands on the universe of Shrek. The first film in of itself was a solid foundation of the kind of world this movie gives us, but Shrek 2 really goes above and beyond in expanding the world. As of this movie, Far Far Away becomes the main location, and even that itself is filled with all sorts of fantasy style locations, like a rundown bar called the Poison Apple where all the villains go, and a factory filled with tons of potions and magical spells, really putting the magic of Shrek front and center, ultimately making it more interesting to even look at than the first movie. On top of that, the new characters introduced this time around are fan favorites for a reason. People have already said enough about Puss in Boots that I can't even think of what else to add. He's just a really funny and well animated character. The royal parents are great, particularly the father. He and Shrek have some pretty funny interactions, especially during the dinner scene, but he's also not unlikable either. You know he's too bothered by the fact that Fiona married Shrek, but you also know that he's willing to take a fall just to make his daughter happy, and later does show Shrek respect when he tries to save her from a forced marriage. And of course, the villains are phenomenal. Fairy Godmother is literally behind everything in this movie, and the fact that she comes up with her plans so quickly and subtly manipulates Shrek into thinking about his flaws is both brilliant and kind of scary. And Charming works well as a secondary antagonist, I repeat, secondary antagonist, to bounce off of his mother. There's a lot of other things that are better than the first one as well. The soundtrack and the placements of each song work flawlessly into the story, the animation is a step up both character-wise and background-wise, and of course, the humor is just fantastic. I laughed out loud on multiple occasions during this film, more so than the first movie. The delivery from everyone comes out perfectly, the pop culture references are well thought out and fit within the world of Shrek, and even some of the performances got a laugh out of me. The climax? Do I even need to describe it? It's suspenseful, emotional, hectic, funny, clever, everything. It's my favorite DreamWorks climax in history, full stop. I can't think of another DreamWorks film that ends the movie so perfectly. Honestly, what else can I even say that hasn't already been said about this movie? Shrek 2 is amazing in so many ways that it was really difficult to even pick any issues I had, and if I did, they'd likely be nitpicks and nothing more. While Shrek 2 isn't my favorite animated sequel period, it's still one of the best. Everything about it works brilliantly, and I have no doubt that Shrek 1 fans will love it. If you haven't seen it yet, do yourself a favor and check it out. You won't be disappointed.